Back in college, in one of my classes, I was assigned the role of devil's advocate on a debate team. My objective was to make a solid argument for the death penalty. Now, it doesn't matter what my actual beliefs are, just know that I was given this task. During the debate, I remember having this one argument about the financial costs to taxpayers for keeping prisoners alive, and how it even costs quite a bit to euthanize them. I stated it was better to delete them with a bullet that you could get for as cheap as 11 cents around, at least back in that time. My opponent immediately rebutted, "Then you're no better than they are." I almost had nothing to say, but in that split second, I remembered something from Red Dead Redemption 2, something the sheriff told Arthur Morgan.
Now, I'm not a fellow to pass a quick judgment, but I've been around long enough to know you don't hire a saint to catch a sinner.
So that is what I told him. You don't hire a saint to catch a sinner. It's this mentality that it doesn't matter what you need to do to get the job done, the ends justify the means. Now, this thought process can also raise another question. Who's to say who is morally right or wrong? And if somebody really believes that they're on the right side of justice, are their actions always vindicated? There's this scene in Metal Gear Rising where Sam is talking to the main protagonist, Raiden, and Raiden begins to question himself and his actions.
My sword is a means to an end, to protect those you'd prey on.
Really? Let me ask you, all those cyborgs you've killed up to now,
They're adults. They made their choice.
they sign up for surgery to fight God knows where. How else would you provide for your family when your country's embroiled in civil war? Pumped full of fear-inhibiting nanomachines and sent right into the blender? Your blender? But they made their choice, right? Those battlefield emotions that the nanos suppress. Listen to them.
What are you talking about?
Can we take him?
What's wrong?
The way he killed all the others? Oh God.
Let's do this!
This isn't fair.
Little punk.
You see, up until this point, Raiden hasn't stopped to ask himself any questions about the humans he was slicing up. He believed he was justified in taking these people out, people who had families, lives, were military veterans, and it was simply because they stood in his way. He thought it was okay. For him, the ends justified the means. Raiden's actually a complex, morally conflicted, and psychologically layered protagonist, despite his extremely cheesy dialogue at times.
Adios, amigos.
¿Viste? Qué raro, eh?
In Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, Raiden fully embraces his identity as a cybernetic warrior, but what truly defines his character arc isn't just his cybernetic enhancements or his fighting abilities. It's the profound psychological trauma, the moral dilemmas, and the emotional schism that defines his journey. Raiden's psychological complexity stems from his traumatic upbringing. Born as Jack in a war-torn Liberia, he was forcibly recruited as a child soldier under the command of Solidus Snake during the brutal Civil War. As a young boy, he was conditioned into becoming a heartless killing machine, earning the name Jack the Ripper for his cold efficiency and ruthless combat skills. This traumatic experience laid the foundation for Raiden's lifelong internal conflict. The violence that Jack was subjected to and forced to inflict during his formative years shattered his sense of self. He was a child, stripped of innocence, taught to dehumanize himself and others in order to survive. In Metal Gear Solid 2, Raiden reflects on his past, talking about how deeply he was indoctrinated into the world of violence. The psychological result was his mind's creation of an alter ego, Jack the Ripper, a persona that revels in bloodshed, disconnected from the empathy and morality that would typically define a human being. And if you guys find yourself enjoying the video so far, consider letting it rip on the like and subscribe button. I really appreciate it. Thank you for enjoying the video. This early loss of humanity, long before Raiden becomes a cyborg, is critical in understanding the psychological schism that persists throughout his life. The boy, who was once Jack, was fundamentally broken, and the remnants of Jack the Ripper would continue to haunt him even as he tried to live a life of justice. Which I think is difficult. It's like you're trying to lead a good life and do the right thing and try to be one way, but you have this other side of you who has a nature that is the exact opposite of what you're trying to actively be. And Raiden is always trying to repress Jack the Ripper, so I think it's interesting and complex. Throughout the game, Raiden suppresses Jack the Ripper, attempting to channel his violent tendencies for a higher purpose. However, this internal conflict reaches a tipping point shortly after that cutscene with Sam during Raiden's battle with Monsoon. Here we see Monsoon challenge Raiden's moral beliefs, taunting him by questioning his identity and purpose. He says,
Sam tells me you see your weapon as a tool, something that saves lives, a means of justice. Now there's a pretty meme. Exquisite. It spared you the burden of all the lives you've taken, absolved you of guilt when you enjoyed it.
These words strike at the heart of Raiden's internal struggle, forcing him to confront the part of himself that he tries to keep buried, his ruthless killer within.
But you, all this is a wake-up call to what I really believe, what I really am.
What are you saying?
I'm saying Jack is back.
And this moment is a pivotal one because it marks the return of Jack the Ripper, this persona that Raiden has tried so hard and long to keep at bay. He's now accepting it. By embracing this darker side, Raiden acknowledges that he can't escape the violence that has shaped him. He can't escape his nature. Rather than denying it, he chooses to use it. But this isn't an uncontrolled descent into madness, it's a calculated acceptance. He realizes that Jack the Ripper, 1, isn't going away, and 2, can be used as a tool that he can harness to fight his enemies. This internal schism, while not fully resolved, becomes a part of Raiden's weaponized identity.
I think it's time for Jack to let her rip.
The psychological implications of this moment are profound. Raiden doesn't simply flip a switch and become evil. Instead, he integrates his violent tendencies into his sense of self, allowing Jack the Ripper to surface when necessary, all while maintaining control. This is important to note, because remember, Jack has a ton of trauma, and integration isn't exactly the easiest thing. In psychology, integration is a term used when talking about the acceptance and fusion of parts of an individual to become whole. Think soul, body, and mind, the fusion of those aspects of a person. This moment with Monsoon implies that Jack had a level of acknowledgement of his trauma, he processed it a bit, and he had a level of acceptance of who he is truly, not just psychologically, but spiritually. He no longer suppresses his darker urges, but channels them toward what he perceives as a just cause. This duality reflects the complexity of human nature. In his veins, in his DNA, Raiden is both the protector and the killer, the hero and the villain. His struggle is not to eliminate one side of himself, but to learn how to reconcile these conflicting parts. Another internal conflict Raiden struggles with is whether he is human or machine. Raiden's transformation into a cyborg is one of the most defining moments of his character arc. After the events of Metal Gear Solid 2, Raiden was captured by the Patriots and experimented on without his consent. They replaced most of his body with cybernetic parts, leaving only his brain and spinal cord intact. This process turned him into a superhuman warrior, but also further distanced himself from his humanity. In MGS4 Guns of the Patriots, Raiden reappears as a highly skilled cyborg ninja. His physical capabilities are greatly enhanced. He can move faster, fight harder, and withstand more damage than a regular human. Yet, this transformation came at a cost. Raiden already struggles with feelings of dehumanization and detachment, and his cyborg body becomes a symbol of his emotional isolation. He's no longer just a soldier, but a weapon designed for war. Raiden's cybernetic transformation amplifies his internal conflict. While he is now a more powerful fighter, his enhanced body also leaves him questioning what remains of his humanity. Is he still human, or has he become a tool of war just as the Patriots intended? His struggle to maintain his sense of self and morality despite his mechanical body becomes a central theme throughout the series. In Rising Revengeance, Raiden ultimately embraces his role as a cyborg, realizing that he can still fight for justice despite his physical transformation. His body might be mechanical, but his mind and willpower remain his own. This marks a significant shift in his character as he moves from seeing himself as a victim of circumstances to someone who wields his new form as a tool for himself for a greater purpose. In 19th century America, manifest destiny was a widely held belief that the expansion of the United States across the North American continent was not only inevitable, but divinely sanctioned. They believed that God himself wanted them to take over America. This belief was used to justify the displacement, oppression, and often violent removal of Native American tribes from their ancestral lands. The idea that America's westward expansion was for the greater good of civilization led to wars, forced relocations, and atrocities in all manners, all in the name of progress and destiny, with supporters of manifest destiny believing that the end result, expanding American territory, justified the suffering inflicted upon the Native American population. Raiden's internal struggle, where he tries to justify the violent actions of Jack the Ripper for a higher cause, mirrors the moral dissonance seen in historical figures who believed they were fulfilling a greater mission, even at the cost of human lives. In the game, Raiden's sword becomes a symbol of his belief in justice. For Raiden, the sword is not just a weapon, but a tool for protecting the innocent and fighting against oppression. In one of the game's key moments, Raiden declares,
My sword is a tool of justice.
This statement highlights Raiden's desire to use his violent skills for a righteous cause. He sees his actions, no matter how brutal, as justified, because they are in the service of the greater good. This belief is tested throughout the game as Raiden faces increasingly morally ambiguous situations. He often fights against enemies who are themselves victims of a corrupt system, raising questions about whether his killing is truly justified. In his battle with Sam, for example, Raiden is forced to confront the idea that his enemies, like him, are also driven by their own sense of justice. Sam, who mirrors Raiden's own skill and ideology, forces him to question whether there is any difference between them. Sam's death prompts Raiden to reflect on whether violence can ever truly be justified, even if it's in the name of a higher purpose. One of the most compelling contrasts in Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance is the character of Jetstream Sam, also known as Samuel Rodriguez. Unlike Raiden, who relies on his cybernetic enhancements for combat, Sam is mostly human, with only a few mechanical augmentations, yet despite his lack of full cybernetic enhancements, Sam is able to fight on equal footing with Raiden. Sam is also a symbol for Raiden, someone who is like him, machine and man, whose death revealed that Sam was actually more human than machine. However, he was able to operate efficiently like a cyborg. I think Raiden in this moment realized that he doesn't need to be more machine than human in order to accomplish what he wants. Jetstream Sam's abilities serve as a stark reminder that strength and skill don't always depend on technology. Sam wields his sword with masterful precision and fights with a sense of honor and purpose. His ability to stand against Raiden without fully being augmented shows that human willpower and discipline can rival the power of machines. Sam's philosophy about strength and combat challenges Raiden's reliance on his mechanical body, forcing him to question what truly makes a warrior powerful. Sam's role in the story also serves as a foil to Raiden. While Raiden uses his enhancements to pursue justice, Sam follows on his own path, which he believes is aligned with his personal sense of honor. Even though Sam works for Desperado, a group Raiden fights against, he doesn't see himself as evil. In fact, Sam's final battle with Raiden is a fight between two warriors who share a similar code but whose paths have diverged. Sam's death leaves Raiden with a profound realization, again, that strength comes from within, regardless of whether it's fueled by human will or cybernetic power. The overarching theme of Raiden's journey in Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance is the reclaiming of agency in the face of overwhelming trauma. From his forced induction as a child soldier to his transformation as a cyborg, Raiden's been manipulated and controlled against his will by others. His psychological journey is about breaking free from these systems of control and choosing his own path, even if that path is drenched in violence. Raiden's transformation from a lost, manipulated soldier into a self-empowered warrior demonstrates that while we might be shaped by our past, we're not prisoners of it. That just because you are born one way doesn't mean that you have to die that way. Raiden's story is a psychological journey that invites players to reflect upon their own understanding of justice, identity, and what it means to be human. But hey, you know what's another game where the character struggles with split personalities? The Beast Inside, and you can check out that psychoanalysis here.
Nanomachine, son!